In 1967, something very strange rolled out of California. It had only two wheels, looked like a spaceship with fins, and somehow stayed upright without tipping over. It was not a motorcycle. It was not a car either. Not in the traditional sense. This was the Gyro X, and it was the kind of vehicle that made people stop and stare, then scratch their heads. How could something so narrow and odd even work on the road? The Gyro X was the brainchild of two men, Alex Tremulis and Thomas O. Summers Jr. Tremulis was a car designer with a long resume. He had worked on the futuristic Tucker 48, the Chrysler Thunderbolt, and even some concept cars at Ford, like the Ford Gyron. He liked pushing the limits of what cars could look like. Summers, on the other hand, was not a car designer. He was an engineer who specialized in gyroscopic systems. He had worked on military missiles and spacecraft stabilization. Together, they believed they could change the way people moved around cities. They formed a small company called Gyro Transport Systems Inc. in Ridgecrest, California. Their goal was simple but bold. Make a narrow two-wheeled car that used a giant spinning gyroscope to stay balanced. By making cars narrower, they thought they could reduce traffic, save gas, and still keep people safe and dry. In theory, it all made sense. But making it work in the real world was the real challenge. The Gyro X looked nothing like other cars of the time. It had a sleek, bullet-like shape. Two people could sit one behind the other, like in a fighter jet. There were no side mirrors, just small video cameras and screens. The body was made of lightweight aluminum, and the whole thing only weighed about 1,850 pounds. But the real magic was inside. A 250-pound gyroscope, hidden in the center of the vehicle, spinning at 6,000 revolutions per minute. That spinning disc created enough force to keep the Gyro X upright, even when it stopped moving. The vehicle was powered by a small, air-cooled 80-horsepower four-cylinder engine taken from a Mini Cooper. It had front-wheel drive and could reportedly reach up to 125 miles per hour. Steering was handled by small front wheels and handlebars instead of a regular steering wheel. When parked, small stabilizer wheels would drop down to keep it from falling over. Once the gyroscope was up to speed, those stabilizers lifted up, and the Gyro X would balance by itself. The idea was far ahead of its time, but the company ran into trouble. Building and maintaining a working gyroscope was expensive. The car also had trouble with regulations and insurance. Only one Gyro X prototype was ever made before Gyro Transport Systems went out of business. The vehicle was lost for years, then rediscovered and restored by the Lane Motor Museum in Nashville, Tennessee. The Gyro X might have looked like something out of a comic book, but it was a real attempt to solve real problems. It was strange, clever, and just a little bit wobbly. But for a brief moment in the late 1960s, a two-wheeled spaceship on the streets of California looked like it might just be the future. In 1970, Japan's car industry was growing fast. Nissan was mostly known for practical vehicles, but at the Tokyo Motor Show that year, they showed something totally unexpected. It was called the Nissan 126X, and it looked like it came from the future. With sharp lines, glowing lights on the hood, and a canopy roof instead of normal doors, this car didn't just break the rules, it threw them away. And yet, hardly anyone remembers it today. The Nissan 126X was not a car built for the streets. It was a pure concept car, a one-off design to show what Nissan's designers and engineers could dream up when they had no limits. At the time, other Japanese companies like Toyota and Mazda were also creating wild prototypes. Nissan didn't want to be left behind, so they came up with something strange, bold, and full of futuristic features. The body of the car was shaped like a wedge, a design trend that became popular in the 1970s. It had a very low profile, with a slanted front and hidden wheels. Instead of regular doors, the whole top part of the car, including the roof, windshield, and side panels, lifted forward like the nose of a fighter jet. That was how you got in. Inside, the cockpit was just as unusual. It had airplane-style controls and even an early concept for a rear-view camera, long before those were used in real cars. One of the most unusual features was the glowing strip on the hood. It had 10 small lights arranged in a line, 5 green, 2 yellow, and 3 red. These were meant to show what the car was doing. green lights for accelerating, yellow for cruising, and red for braking. It was an early idea for a driver communication system that would let pedestrians or other drivers know what was happening just by looking at the car. Power came from a Nissan L Series inline-six engine. This engine was placed in the back of the car and tilted for a lower center of gravity. It was a 3.0-liter engine, and while no real performance numbers were shared, it was likely similar to engines used in other Nissan models like the Fairlady Z. The car was also designed with all-wheel drive and a 5-speed manual transmission, though it is believed the prototype was not functional. The 126X was never meant to go into production. After the 1970 Tokyo Motor Show, it disappeared from the spotlight, but it still made a mark. Matchbox even made a die-cast toy version of the car from 1973 to 1985, introducing this strange concept to kids all over the world. Today, the Nissan 126X lives on mostly in photos and design books. It may not have driven on real roads, but it showed how creative a company like Nissan could be when they thought outside the box, and maybe even outside the decade. In 1969, the world of Formula One racing was dangerous. Drivers were pushing their cars to the limit, but the cars were not built with safety in mind. Crashes were common, and many ended in tragedy. It was a time when speed came before safety, but one Italian company decided to do something different. Pininfarina, a design firm known for styling Ferraris and Alfa Romeos, came up with a bold idea. What if a Formula One car could be designed with safety as the top priority? The result was the Pininfarina Sigma Grand Prix, a concept car that shocked everyone when it was shown at the Geneva Motor Show in March 1969. The car was designed by Paolo Martin, a young and creative designer working at Pininfarina. It was built in collaboration with the Swiss magazine review Automobile. The project had strong support from major companies, including Ferrari, Fiat, and Mercedes-Benz. Even Enzo Ferrari gave it his approval. The idea was to create a Formula One car that could survive a crash and protect the driver, something most race cars at the time could not do. Underneath, the car was based on the Ferrari 312 Formula One car. It used an aluminum monocoque chassis made from avianyl alloy. The frame was riveted together for extra strength. The engine was a Ferrari Tipo 255 CV12. It had a displacement of 3.0 liters and produced 436 horsepower at 11,000 revolutions per minute. A Ferrari Tipo 60 95-speed manual gearbox handled the power, sending it to the rear wheels. The car was mid-engined and rear-wheel drive like most Formula One cars. The suspension used double wishbones with inboard springs and dampers, both in the front and rear. It had Firestone tires and weighed around 1,300 pounds. The body was just 36.6 inches tall and 165 inches long, giving it a low, wide, and aggressive stance. But what made the Sigma Grand Prix stand out was not the performance. It was the long list of safety features, many of which were unheard of in racing at the time. It had a reinforced cockpit called a driver survival cell. This was designed to keep the driver safe during a crash. The fuel tanks were built with multiple layers to reduce the chance of explosions. There was also a built-in fire extinguisher system and a new type of seatbelt harness to keep the driver firmly in place. One strange feature was the extended side pods that went beyond the rear wheels. These were added to prevent the wheels of two cars from locking during a crash. The rear wing was also built strong enough to act as a roll bar. The Sigma Grand Prix never raced, and only one car was ever made, but it left a big impact. Many of its safety ideas slowly became normal in Formula One and other racing series. Today, the car is kept by Pininfarina and has been shown at events like the 2016 Geneva Motor Show. It remains a symbol of a time when safety finally started to matter in racing. In 1983, Toyota revealed something at the Tokyo Motor Show that looked like it came from another decade, or maybe even another planet. It was called the Toyota FX1, and it was not meant to go into production. This car was built to show off the future. It packed so many experimental features into one sleek body that it felt more like a science lab on wheels than a car. But behind the flashy tech was a serious effort to shape Toyota's future direction. The Toyota FX1 made its first appearance at the 25th Tokyo Motor Show, held from October 28th to November 8th, 1983. A few months later, it appeared again at the 1984 Geneva Motor Show. Toyota did not just want to impress people with good looks. It wanted to display its research in aerodynamics, engine performance, electronics, and materials. The FX1 was a 2+2 coupe, shaped like a sports car and filled with advanced systems. Under the hood, the Toyota FX1 used a special engine called the Lazari AX. This engine was a prototype based on the 1GGU model. It was a 1,988 cubic centimeter inline-six engine with 24 valves and twin overhead camshafts. The engine was boosted by twin turbochargers and an intercooler. Toyota added several experimental systems like a computer-controlled variable valve timing, a modulated displacement system that could shut down half the cylinders to save fuel, an acoustic induction control system for smoother power delivery, and a distributorless ignition system. The engine produced around 210 horsepower and about 273 newton meters of torque. It was paired with a 4-speed automatic transmission with overdrive called the electronically controlled transmission with overdrive, or ECTS. This setup allowed the FX1 to reach speeds around 155 miles per hour. The FX1 was not just about power. It came with a 4-wheel independent double wishbone suspension and an electronically modulated hydropneumatic system that could raise or lower the car based on speed. Toyota also included their TEM system, which stands for Toyota Electronic Modulated Suspension, to help keep the ride smooth and stable. Another highlight was 4-wheel electronic skid control, which helped improve traction and cornering. Toyota even experimented with new materials. The body used fiber-reinforced metal panels and parts made from shape memory alloys, metal that could return to its original shape when heated. The brakes and exhaust used ceramic materials for better heat resistance. Aerodynamics were a big focus too. The body was fully flush to reduce drag, and the ride height adjusted automatically to improve stability. The drag coefficient was just 0.25, which was very low for its time. Inside, the Toyota FX1 looked like a cockpit. It had 6-inch color CRT screens to show speed, fuel level, and other info. There was a voice command system, a digital audio disc player, and a steering wheel that moved automatically to make getting in and out easier. It even remembered driver settings. The doors opened in a strange tilt and glide motion for better access. Though the Toyota FX1 never made it to the streets, its technology helped shape later models like the Toyota Supra, Soarer, and Crown. It also influenced the later one, GGT production engine, though some of the advanced systems were removed. The FX1 was not a car meant to be sold. It was meant to show what Toyota engineers were dreaming up. In the 1960s, car companies were dreaming up strange ideas for the future. Some were thinking about flying cars. Others imagined bubble-shaped machines or wild-looking prototypes. But at the 1964 New York World's Fair, General Motors brought something totally different. It was called the General Motors Runabout, and it looked like a cross between a go-kart, a shopping cart, and a space pod. It had only 3 wheels, came with built-in grocery baskets, and was made to fix one big problem: city driving. People were already getting tired of traffic, parking problems, and gas bills. So General Motors tried to design a solution. The General Motors Runabout was created by GM's Advanced Styling Studio. This concept car was not built to race or show off power. It was designed as a small commuter car for families living in big cities. It had a 3-wheeled layout, 2 wheels in the back, and a single front wheel that could rotate all the way around. This meant the Runabout could turn in super tight spaces, making it easy to park on crowded city streets. One of the weirdest and most clever features of the Runabout was in the back. Instead of a regular trunk or cargo space, it had 2 removable shopping carts. These carts had foldable wheels and could be taken straight into a grocery store. When you were done shopping, you just wheeled them back to the car, attached them to the back, and drove home. It was meant to make city life easier and reduce the need for carrying heavy bags. This might sound normal today with delivery apps and folding carts, but in 1964 it was pretty wild. Inside, the car was made to carry 5 people. 2 adults in the front and 3 children in the back. The Runabout focused on being practical. The dashboard had a futuristic look with minimal controls, more like an airplane cockpit than a traditional car. The seats were simple, and the whole body was small and lightweight. It was low to the ground and easy to get in and out of, especially for elderly people or kids. Since it had only 3 wheels, it probably would have been considered a motorcycle in many U.S. states, which might have helped it avoid some car safety laws. Even though the Runabout got a lot of attention at the World's Fair, it never went into production. It was a pure concept, more of an idea than a real car. General Motors never gave it an engine or published performance specs. It was more of a rolling display to show what could be possible in the future. Some people thought it looked silly, like a toy car. Others saw it as a smart idea for crowded cities. Either way, the Runabout showed that GM was at least thinking about practical problems, not just horsepower. Today, the General Motors Runabout is almost forgotten. But for one moment in 1964, it rolled into the spotlight with shopping carts, space-age style, and one wobbly front wheel that could spin in circles. It might have looked like a cartoon, but it made people stop and think.